And this is the class name, Hello World. And the class name should be identical to the file's name, Hello World. And the PSVM stands for the public static void main. This is the main method, which is also the entrance of this program. And between this block, the system out println will give the screen a line of text. We say this is the content of this program. And for this example, this is also part of some class. This is class 4.
Wow, that's how I feel. That's a new page. And I think order to go to this.
Okay, fine. Thank you. And the code for class 4 is in a file named food.java. That means class name and the Java file name are the same. Just a text file with the .java extension. And the class is a programmer define the data type. That means a class is a data type. Okay, we usually say that int, float, those are primary data type. For the class 4, for a certain class, that is another type of data type. We will get more into it in our next week's lecture after the exam 1. And a complete program will normally consist of many different classes and thus many different files. Here is a pretty simple questions that what does this do equal? So we just need to get the output of the two numbers multiplication. So we will skip this one. And we also introduced 3 error types. The first one is syntax errors, which also known as the compile errors. It is called at compile time, and the compiler didn't understand or the compiler doesn't allow. The second one is the runtime error. This is something bad happens at runtime, as Java breaks this into errors and exceptions. And there are also another one we called it the logic error. It is a program compiles and runs. However, it doesn't do what you intended or you want. Then we will go through some Java language basic features. Here is the basic features we just talking about of the data types. We have some primitive data types, and we also can take the classes and objects as a data type. And in our Java programs, we have some expressions and operators. For the sort code, I mean the system output line, it is an expression. And we can also have some operators like we plus 2 strings together. That means we can concatenate them together. And some other features like control structures, which is like if something is true and the program will conduct the following statement there. And for the arrays and methods and the programming for correctness, we will get involved with them in our later chapters. Here for identifiers in Javas, we say that those valid identifiers are usually be letters, digits, underscore, and the $sign. However, be sure to try to avoid don't use $sign because it can confuse the runtime systems. That means you can make it as an identifier, but sometimes it will give you some unexpected results, as we say, so that we can start with letter, underscore, or sign. But by convention, we usually start with a letter, which is lower capitalized. And the variables and the method names, lowercase with internal words capitalized, like honking, big. The big, for the first B, you should use the uppercase. And the variable name, for their first character, V and N, you should use the uppercase. And constants, all caps with the lower score between internal words, like another, underscore, honking, underscore, big, underscore, identifiers. This stands for the constants, which the names, each characters are all upper cases. And for classes, they always start with capital letters in the internal words, capitalized, and all the other lowercase, like honking, long class names, that starting from the first letter H, it will be capitalized. Try to distinguish the second one and the fourth one. The second one, it is for the variable names and the method names. As you can see that the first character is lowercase. The remaining is the same as the class's name. However, the class's name, the first letter is always uppercase. So all these conventions are to differentiate identifiers. And then get back to the data types. We have learned some primitive data types. That is the byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, and character. For the byte, short, int, they can all stand for the whole numbers. And for the long, float, double, they are stands for the decimal numbers. For the boolean, it stands for true or not. For the char, that means it indicates it is whether a character or not. So here is the way how to declare and use a variable. In the first line, we declare a variable with name X, and we specify its data type as int because we want to use the X as an integer. And in the second line, it is a one-line declare and assignment code. That means I declare the Y and assign the value of 10 to Y at the same time. For the third line, I declare two different variables there, the Z and the ZZ. Both of them are int data type. For the fourth line, I declared a double A equal 12.0. That means I declare a variable name is A, and I assign the value of a decimal number, which is 12.0, to the variable name A. And for the fifth line, I declared two different Boolean variables there, and I assigned different value to the two Boolean variables, which are, the first one is done, and I assign the false to the done, and I assign the true to the prime. And in the last line, I declare a char my, and I assign the D to the variable my there. So this is a convention. Those are conventions to how can we declare and assign values to the different types of variables. And for classes and objects, that is predefined or use user-defined data types. They consist of constructors, methods, and fields. And for such a thing, we will talk about it in the second lectures of our next week, in our next week. This is the characteristics and the range for different primitive data types. For the byte, you should always remember that is 8-bit signed long, and it stands for the minus 128 to 127. And for short, it is 16 bits long, and for int, it is 32 bits, etc. So what are classes and objects? We will have a simple notion of it in this slide. And a class is synonymous with data type, and an object is like a variable that the data type of the object is some class. And we also refer to as an instance of a class. And the classes contains the implementations, details of the data type, and use the interface for programmers who wants to use the data type. And objects are complex variables, usually multiple pieces of internal data and the various behaviors carried out by a method. In our first lecture, we write our own welcome.java. That is a certain kind of class, and that is also certain kind of objects there. And there are several built-in classes. And the first one is system. If you can remember, when we are using IntelliJ to write some code, and we use the shortcut like SOLT, right? SOLT, the S stands for the system. And the system is a built-in classes. And there are some others like the scanner. That means we are create a scanner, and we use the scanner to take the user input from the console. This is a built-in classes. And also there are some other classes, and you can look at the Java API page there. And for the import is a reserved word. That means you cannot use for variable names and other purposes. And packages and classes can be imported to another classes. We will implement such a thing in our later chapters. However, import doesn't actually import the code. It is unlike the C++ include, which process the command. Import just a declaration. And the import statement usually outside the class block, like this is the class block. However, since we are going to import outside of it. And there are different ways for us to import some packages. We use a star to indicate that we can include a whole packages there. However, we can also complete the import statement. That means we are going to include a list of a given class there. And the import statement instructs the compiler to look in the packages for types it cannot find defined locally. So that makes it quite different from C++. And the java.language.star package is automatically imported to all other classes. However, it is not required to import classes that are part of the same project in Eclipse. It is only in Eclipse, but in VS Code and IntelliJ, it might require you to import the classes manually. And we also demoed some string classes there. And a string is a standard Java class. That is a whole host of behaviors via methods. It is special because it is used a lot in our programs. And the string literals exist. No other classes has literals. We say a string means a sentence, and a string should exist between the double quote, like the double quote here. If we are talking about characters, we only using the single quote. So this is the difference. You should always remember. And it gives some examples of the strings, and then we also demoed that we can use a plus sign operator to concatenate two different strings, like the first name plus the last name, which stands for concatenate the first name Mike with the last name Scott. And a special circumstances is that any primitive or object on the other side of a plus operator from a string automatically converted to string. No matter it is an int or a character, as long as it is concatenate with a string, everything of the result will automatically convert it to string. For the stand output, we tried in our program by using different way to print the statement or expressions. Here, for the salt without ln there, that means we just need to print the expressions we write in the brackets. However, there is no new line there. If we include ln there, a new line will be automatically generated. And if we just include such line of code there, no expression between the brackets, that means we just need, the program will just print out a new line without any other information there. And for constants, literal constants like the way you specify values that are not computed and recomputed but remain well, and constants for the life of a program. Well, this is our literal constants: true, false, null, C, C++, etc. However, we have some named constants, like we use the keyword final to specify a specific constant. And the scope will be local to a method or a class. That means if you are using a final int num sectors, which is equal to 3 in your class, this thing is only valid in your current class, and you cannot use it in other classes. And we also talked something about operators. Here we say that an individual equal symbol there means that you are assigning a value to a variables. However, if it is 2, I cannot edit it. However, if there is 2 consequent equal assignment operator, that means make comparison. These two things are quite different. They have different syntax meanings. This is 1 equal only means assignment, that giving a value to a variable. 2 is truly making the comparisons to make decisions whether the left operand is equal to the right operand. And there are some arithmetic operators we have also introduced in the previous lectures, that it is the plus, minus, multiple, divide, and take the mode, which we say we take the remainder. And these are assignment operators, which means plus equal means that we plus something by itself, and minus equal is the same thing. And we also talk something about the increment and decrement operators like plus plus, minus minus, which stand for the prefix and the postfix of the increment and the decrement. And for the expressions, they are evaluated based on the precedence of the operators. And Java will automatically convert numerical primitive data types, but results are sometimes surprising. So take care when mixing the integer and the floating point numbers in expressions, because the compilers may discard some digits in your result. And the meaning of an operator is determined by its operand. Like something in the left operand divided by the right operand. It is integer division or floating point division. Both. It's the only difference is that the result may be affected by how you define the result, or whether you give a cast operations there. And when talking about the cast, we say it is the temporary conversion of a variable from its original data type to some other data type, like being cast from a part in a play or movie. With primitive data types, if a cast is necessary from a less inclusive data type to a more inclusive data type, it is done automatically. Like we firstly assigned 5 to x. X is an integer type. And then we assign 3.5 to the variable a. And the variable a is a double data type, which means it's a decimal point number. And then we declare another double type variable b. And the b is calculated as a multiplied by x plus a over x. And we can see a is a decimal point number, which is 3.5, and x is integer. So a cast is automatically performed in this statement. That means the result from the calculation will be converted from a less inclusive data type, which is int, to a more inclusive data type, which is double. That's why V is double, because double is more inclusive. That means it has it uses longer digits to represent. And if a cast is necessary from a more inclusive to a less inclusive data type, and the class must be done explicitly by the programmer, like you should always specify what is the data type you want for this result, like A over B. Well, initially it will automatically convert to the double, right? However, we want an int there. So we have to specify that int should be there. However, this is not correct in our when we are coding. Actually, we can do, but it will give us some syntax errors there. So each time you better specify the correct matching data types. Like here is supposed to be double, and then you just make double there and change the int to double, and the syntax errors will eliminate it. But if you are keeping int there, well, actually it is fine, but the result may be unexpected. Okay, that is the whole view for primitive casting. That means from more inclusive to less inclusive. That is from double, float, long to int, short, char, byte. The outer ring is the most inclusive data type, and the inner ring is least inclusive. In expression variables and the sub-expressions of less inclusive data types, they are automatically cast to more inclusive. That means from inside to outside, it is automatically done by the compiler. But if you want to do something from outside to the inside, you have to specify the data types by yourself explicitly like this. You have to write the brackets with the data types, which is less inclusive there. And we also talk a little bit about the control statement, which is the if. That is the linear flow of control. That is the statements execute in consecutive order. And the if statements is for the decision making. Because in the if statement here, you will have to specify whether the expressions inside is true or not. If it is true, the program will execute the statement after the Boolean expressions. Otherwise, it will go to the other part. And a single statement could be replaced by a statement block, braces with 0 or more statements inside. For the Boolean expressions are evaluated to be true or false. And there are some also relational operators, that is bigger, bigger than, smaller, smaller and equal, equal, not equal. And the third is the logical operators. This is and, this is or, and this is not. We will get more about it in our later chapters, but we should currently we just need to have a notion of it. That's the and or causes short circuit evaluation. That means you only need one part. That means the left operand. I cannot type. That means as long as you know left is wrong, that means the whole part is wrong. That means that is the short circuit. And I have strikes through. Okay, I cannot get the strikes through. Fine. I will write in. As long as one is F and the whole part is false. That is the circuit. And for the OR operation, as long as you know the left is true, one is true. No matter right is true or false, the whole expression will lead to true. That is the short circuit evaluation. We say here. And we also get some flow of control things in our lab. That is in our homeworks. pretty like 2.30 afterwards. The number of the homework there. So the if else statement, if something is true, we execute the first statement. Otherwise, we execute the second one. This is a multi-way selection that if something is true, we conduct this. Else if, that means here we have three scenarios, right? If the scenarios doesn't meet the first Boolean expression, it will evaluate it by the second expression. If the first and the second one doesn't meet, well, the program will go to the third statement there. So individual statements could be replaced by a statement block and a set of braces with 0 or more statements. And Java also has the switch statement, but not part of our subset. And we will talk in the control flow more in next week's lectures. And that is the end of the review for next week's exam. And I would suggest everyone try to implement the code in the assignment. Let me go to the uni. Sorry, I recently got sick. This one. I suggest everybody. Oh, this is. I suggest everybody go through the chapter's homework. You do it by yourself and you evaluate everything by yourself and try to implement the code. The code, I gave you some solutions. And for the whole book, here you can find the coding. You can find the coding problems there, right? 1. There are 35 questions. We have implemented 4 in our lab, but trying to implement the others, like the 2.5, 2.8 by yourself, 2.12, or even 2.18 by yourself. Try to implement by yourself because I already give you the answers, right? There, you can always find the solutions there. So if you have done with the chapter self-review and the exercise problems, and you will find the next week's exam pretty easy. Pretty easy. I don't even change the statement there. But if you are familiar with coding, it's fine. If you don't do that, it's okay. I will still give you the grade as long as you submit your self notes to the assignment. I will give you the grade. And if you do good in the exams, you will have a good grade there. But if you are struggling with programming, please try to do the homework, to try to do the assignment in advance. Trust me, you will not. I don't cheat students. And if you still find, oh, I don't understand, and you can come to my office hours. But don't be nervous. Everybody will have a pretty good final grades. Don't worry. I will not fail you. But since we are studying computer science, you should at least learn something. All right, that is what I want to talking about. And then I will change the time for the quiz. There are 32 questions there. 32 questions. And you cannot, well, there are 4 people have already done. Okay. You cannot go back. So please careful to make your selections, and good luck to you. Once you have done with the quiz chapter 2, and you can leave. If you have any questions, you can come to me. Go and take your quiz now.
Professor, once we're done, we can leave, right? Or
Yeah,
is it
once you have done, you can leave. And it is open book, open resource. But try to understand. Take your time. It's from the test bank. And it only counts 1 point to your final grade. It doesn't count too much. So don't be nervous. And if you have some problems of implementing your program, and you can come to me after the quiz. Yes, everything is on Brightspace. Oh, but not for today. Not for today. But I can upload it. Okay, no problem. I will upload today's lecture notes to Brightspace. Actually, I don't want, but it's okay. For next week's exam, all the problems are coming from the assignment. Oh, I'm talking too much.